I know now everyone's going to be able to hear me. Side note, when I was a little girl, I grew up in Chicago, and I used to go to the church and do my homework in the back of the church because I wanted God to do the homework for me. And so whenever I come to church and I'm doing something academic, it brings me back to that memory. So I pray to God that He speaks through me and is enabling me to be able to embrace upon everyone here the knowledge that He has blessed me with. This is actually an area of the law that is categorized under transactional law. It's not, like I indicated earlier, it's not an area where there's a lot of litigation. يعني مش نصلوا ربنا مش هنروحوا المحكمة بالحاجات اللي احنا بنكلموا عليها دلوقتي. بس عشان كده I think أبونا كان عايزني أتكلم مع كل حد على التفاصيل بتاع القانون بتاعت حاجة اسمها wills. Some people here, I think, have wills, if not most individuals. Does everyone know what a will is? No. You got to be careful online, but you don't necessarily have to go to an attorney to do it. And so that's the interesting thing. If you have a simple estate, in other words, if you don't have rental property and you don't have maybe even, assets of different natures like an IRA or another retirement fund or things of that nature, then you may want to just go right ahead and go to the North Carolina General Statutes and go to Chapter 30, which is the wills chapter in the law, in the actual kanun. And it tells you pretty much what you have to do in order to make sure that you draft a legal will. So I will tell my friends, and everyone here is my friend, if you have a simple estate, you don't need to go to an attorney. I know you're hearing you don't need to go to an attorney from an attorney, but I like to make sure that I tell everyone what I would want someone to tell me if I were in your shoes. So in essence, it depends on what assets you have. So I would suggest before you do anything, sit down, make a list of all the assets that you currently have, because it has to be what you have at that moment and not what you anticipate having or what you had before, unless if it's somehow you have an interest in it, a legal interest in whatever it is that you're going to be leaving for your heirs, okay? There is an area that I think is important to discuss, and that has to do, this is where we left off when we were downstairs. It's called a durable power of attorney or a living will. This is an area where I'm not sure if many Egyptians are aware of. It's to inform medical professionals what you would want done if you were incapacitated. In other words, let's say, for example, God forbid, you got into an accident and you were on life support. You can inform medical professionals what you would want through something called a living will. And if you want to assign someone to speak on your behalf so as to ensure that your family or your relatives are not fighting about what to do, you can also do that through a durable power of attorney. And the reason why I would suggest to try to kind of keep this in mind is because I have seen many really good families make decisions that are not aligned with what you would have otherwise wanted, and you have bickering, fighting. And you want to try to eliminate fighting as much as possible. And that's the reason I would suggest to try to take a look at these two things and make sure that you keep that in mind. It could be very easy as you just writing down what it is you would want, and then if you wanted to assign someone, then you would do something called the durable power of attorney. But you don't have to assign someone. The reason why I would suggest to assign someone is so that way you don't have fighting amongst your family members. Do you want to talk about that real quick? احنا عايزين نطمنه كل حد بعرف كل حاجة اللي أنا بقولها so هي هتترجمها بس if everyone understands it then we can leave it that way. عايزين بالعربي كمان؟ أوكي ده حاجة نعملوها. It's just I wrote it out. It's what you wrote in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they can.
I put her on the spot, so I'm sorry.
اوكي سو هي كلمت على ان الشخص يكون جاهز باللي هو الباور الدورابل باور اوف اترني هو التوكيل اللي هيخلي الشخص يوكل شخص تاني ان هو يتصرف في الحاجات اللي هو بيمتلكها اي نوع من انواع الممتلكات ده بتكون عن طريق توكيل الشخص بيعمله لشخص اخر. ها؟ I don't know. Do you have a question? About the second one. Okay. The second one is the living will. هي وصية بيعملها الشخص وهو على قيد الحياة. هو بيكتب الوصية بتاعته وبيقول إن الممتلكات دي هتتقسم بالطريقة الفلانية وهتروح للشخص الفلاني. هو بيكتبها وهو على قيد الحياة. دي living will. Medical living will. Okay. I will ask her about. What is the medical living will?
It's not a medical living will.
It's not a medical living will.
It's two documents. So what you end up doing is you're drafting a living will. So that doesn't require an individual. That is your directive. You're talking about what you want in something called a living will. And actually, to be frank with you, I don't like that name because it's misleading because it has the word will in it. It's really not a will. It's just what the law attributed to this particular statement. They said, we're going to wave a wand and we're going to call it a living will. But it's not a will because obviously it's being written for purposes associated with things that could potentially happen while you're living. Now, the durable power of attorney, that's the medical one that everyone's referring to. That's where you appoint someone who is going to carry out your wishes. Usually, you do these two documents together because then the person you're appointing is aware of what you want. So they're usually not done separately.
عايز اقول لكم حاجه انا فهمت اللي هي بتقوله. اولا هي بتقول في حاجتين لما الشخص يكون هو عنده اولاد وعنده ممتلكات وكل ده ممكن يعمل وصيه دي بيسموها وصيه الاحياء واخدين بالنا. لكن افرض واحد بعيد عنكم مريض في المستشفى ومش عارف يعمل ايه في الحاله دي ما يقدرش يعمل وصيه لكن ايه اللي يعمله شوف شخص واثق فيه يعمله توكيل اللي هو سموه durable power of attorney power of attorney اللي هو التوكيل. durable power of attorney ده لما بعيد عنكم يكون مريض ومش قادر يعمل حاجه فبيخصص شخص بيثق فيه يعمل له هو توكيل بحيث ان هو يقدر يتصرف في الحاجه. فهمتوها؟ نعم مش لازم durable will durable power.
You just have to make sure it's done right.
How to done right?
You have to have it in writing. Yes. You have to make sure that it is in essence witnessed. I would always say have always two witnesses and make sure that those two witnesses are there when you draft it. So not draft it, but when you sign it. Yes, so that way they can attest to the fact that it in fact
عارفين زي ما بتروحوا تعملوا نوتري بابليك بتروحوا في البنك بتعملوا نوتري بابليك هي زي كده بس بتبقى في المستشفى في 2 يجوا شهود انت بتثقوا فيهم ومعاهم الشخص ده اللي هتعمل له التوكيل فبتكتب فيه اللي هو durable power of attorney ليها صيغة أعتقد. Do you have any form for
There
this?
are forms online, but you have to be careful. Whenever you look on forms online, they are not guaranteed to be correct. So what I would always recommend is to make sure that you follow the North Carolina general statutes, because that's where you know it's going to be exactly correct.
طب can you make a form for them ready for God.
A template?
Yes.
Just
God,
as long, so this is one of the things that the rules of professional conduct mandate. Whenever a lawyer makes any form, they have to make sure that, I mean, I could go right ahead and make a form and put it online if you all want that, just so as to ensure, because if I hand it to you, then there is a question of whether or not there's an attorney-client relationship, and there's other requirements that go along with that that might create issues. So what I will do, and I do not mind doing it because it's a lot of fun for us, is I'll draft it for everyone here. But now I want to make sure that we do point out, if you're doing, in other words, if you're telling someone what you want in a hospital, you're not going to need a durable power of attorney at the hospital. This is to be done before you go to the hospital, before any emergency arises. But I do have a question for you, Abuna. Does our religion mandate anything that would be right for us to do or not do in regards to end-of-life questions? Like, for example, let's say I don't want to be placed on life support if I were ever placed in that kind of situation. Does our religion say I have to be placed on life support, or does it not take a position whatsoever?
this life support is another issue. Not we talk about it right now.
So I
This
can
is
say
big.
that and not
yes,
be...
Yes, we'll talk about it later on. But life support, it is a big discussion and big يعني debate about it.
Oh,
Okay. لكن
yeah.
Yes. لا durable the power of attorney برضو عشان الحاجات الشخصية بتاعتكم.
Yeah, but the living will, she's right.
Huh? This is another issue, but we're talking about.
It's in there. It's in there. That's why I'm asking. But I don't want to put you on the spot,
Yes,
Abuna.
yes.
I just want to make sure that if I'm advising, especially because we are a Christian law firm, I don't want to be telling anyone, asking them certain questions and have it be contra what we believe in. But I'm not sure what we believe in, so I think maybe that could be another. Yeah, is it a big controversy? Is
خلينا
that what
بس
it is?
في المحاكات العقارات
I
والحاجات
opened up a can of
المادية.
worms.
Not your life. فأنت تكلمي only about the.
Well, that's why I asked the question.
Yes, the living will.
All right, so before you draft one, consult with Abuna. So that way I can make sure I'm not doing anything wrong. But now, if you do get into some complicated issues, you really should consult with a lawyer. I know everyone tries to avoid consulting with a lawyer, but let me tell you, one of the best things that I've had clients tell me is, thank God we came in and spoke with you because we had no idea these were requirements. And we give anyone who comes through Abuna a discount, and so you really don't lose anything through the consult, okay? All right, so he explained to me how to do this. Okay, so I think everyone is aware of what a will is, but maybe not necessarily aware of the different types of will and what the requirements of a will is. North Carolina actually makes it quite easy in the sense that, it's chapter 31. Who did I tell it was chapter 30? Chapter 31, everyone. Is the chapter that actually controls for purposes of wills. And it's a 2-page chapter, which means that if you go to North Carolina General Statutes, chapter 31, it's going to tell you the different kinds of will. So I've heard before how people will go right ahead and just write a will out in handwriting. That's called a holographic will. And that actually is legitimate, but you need to make sure that if you're going to do a holographic will, that it is all in your handwriting, so there's no question that in fact it is what you've drafted, and that you keep it in a safe place. I wouldn't recommend a holographic will simply because of the fact that if, for example, you pass on before you were expected to pass on, and it's just left amongst your paperwork, it could be that your estate gets distributed without even taking it into consideration because nobody knows where it's at. So I would probably prefer to do the typewritten will, which is the nuncupative will, just so that way you can make sure that in essence it's done right. And that's the will where you go right ahead and you make sure that you type the will out and you have 2 witnesses with you at the time. and they will go right ahead and attest to the fact that it is you who signed that will, and it is in fact your will. And then you can have notary just there. So if you wanted to make it formal, type it out, go to the bank, your bank, because you can get notaries for free there, and bring 2 of your friends with you. As long as those are 2 friends that don't stand to gain anything through your will.
بس ايه اللي مكتوب؟ اول حاجه attested written will.
Yes, so
يعني
that's
وصيه مكتوبه ومصدق عليها. يعني ايه وصيه مكتوبه؟ يعني حد كتب وصيه وراح البنك وعمل النوتري بابليك، دي اسمها attested written will. holographic will الواحد بيكتبها بايده بس، ما مش موقع عليها من غير هو اللي موقع عليها، ما راحش عمل البنك تصديق عليها. واخدين بالنا؟ اما نيو كيوباتيف ويل دي الوصيه الشفويه، يعني حد قال قدام حد تاني انا بسيب ميراث كذا لفلان وفلان وفلان. واخدين بالنا؟ دي شفويه اورال، مجرد كلام بيقولوه. واخدين بالنا؟ واضح؟ يبقى في ادي 1 2 3 3 انواع من الوصيه. الوصيه مكتوبه ومصدق عليها من البنك اللي هو معمول لها نوتري بابليك. الوصيه الثانيه وصيه مكتوبه بخط منشئها اللي عملها. والوصيه الثالثه الشفويه شفاهه ما اتكتبتش. This is number 1 attested written will which notary public, and the other one holographic will you write it without going to the bank, and the last one oral one in front of people. That's it. انهي الثانيه والثالثه؟ طبعا ما هي موجود هنا، ما دام القانون بتاع نورث كارولاينا ما اعترف بيه. ايه اثبات ايه؟ اثبات الرسمي ان انا اقول الوصيه دي في 2 شهود يبقوا شاهدين، على الاقل 2 شهود 2 witnesses. Yeah. طيب what is the difference between the written one and the new cooperative?
So it's usually like, let's say for example you're on a hospital bed and you're about to die, and you bring in 2 nurses into your hospital room and you tell them, oh my gosh, I don't have a will. Or let's say you do have a will. This is where you can get into some litigation. And you wanted to change something. Then let's say you bring in 2 nurses and you say, I want to change everything. I got into a fight with my husband. I want to leave everything to my brother, let's just say. That could lead to litigation, so you better be careful in regards to that. But the non-cooperative will is the one, like you're at the hospital and you're about to pass on, and you have 2 nurses there that can attest to the fact that you orally wanted all your property to go to your brother, for example. Nam?
If somebody leaves a recording, does that mean anything?
So I'll be frank with you. That's where the litigation happens, because that is not going to be legal. It's not pursuant to the law. But I will, because I do like litigation. Let's say, for example, you did leave a recording. Guess what? I'm going to want to bring that into court and dispute anything that someone else brought in. But that's where you get into the creation of litigation. And so that's the reason why we do this, is to eliminate litigation and not have that as an issue. But if you did leave a recording, I think the biggest fight we would have is that's not pursuant to North Carolina law. But what my argument would be, and of course this is the way that my mind thinks it's what an argument would be. My argument would be the law is here to ensure that you are expressing the decedent's wishes. This is the best example of what the decedent's wishes are, and it just so happened that the decedent didn't have another option but a recording at that present moment. But it isn't going to be pursuant to North Carolina law, so you're going to find yourself in court litigating that if someone is disputing it.
السؤال اللي بتسأله لو حد ساب تسجيل بوصية، هل دي تعتمد ولا ما تعتمدش؟ لا، في قانون نورث كارولاينا ما تعتمدش. النهاية هتروح للكورت، فأحسن ما فيش كلام زي ده يعني.
Yes.
One is that
talking about that. Yeah, but go right ahead and ask him.
Yeah, so the question about taxes. I know the way you design your will actually might be beneficial, but there's ways where it's better for your heirs based on the situation with taxes and stuff like that.
So that's going to be, you're going to have to create, so depending upon what you own, for example,
Yeah.
if you own certain items that you're not going to have them go through probate or even go into a trust, like for example, if I own property and I can create that property as right of survivorship, there are things that you can do before you pass on that avoids that amount to be as part of your estate. But the tax law here, the tax implications here in North Carolina, there is no estate tax. Now, there is an estate tax in federal, but I think you have to be, and I wrote it up, it's more than 11 million.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the estate tax. Now, you come to the beneficiaries. Are they going to be taxed? The biggest tax that we've seen is the capital gains tax, and that doesn't come into effect until the beneficiary sells the property. Yeah, so let's say, for example, you acquired a $1 million property from your parents, and then in 2 years you decide to sell it, then in essence you have to take a look at, it was worth $1 million when you got it, how much did you then go right ahead and sell it for, and then you're going to pay the higher capital gains tax.
So the capital tax only comes in after the sale, not
That's
when it's passed
correct.
through.
That's
Okay.
correct. And you don't have to pay income tax on it either. And so you're gaining it unless, of course, you fall in that category where the amount is more than 11.
Oh.
Yeah, and I think it's like 11.1 or something. It just got, in the new tax code, it went up. And so generally speaking, it doesn't affect most individuals, but it could affect individuals who own land or property.
So what if their beneficiaries not on land? So like trust funds, that sort of thing. What IRAs?
So that is still considered part of, that is still considered part of, but there are different ways that can be created, like different trusts that can be created that hopefully are able to prevent you from including that as the taxable amount. But I will tell you, the IRS has caught up with the different ways and have in essence made it so that way you're not able, for the most part, not everything, not able to avoid tax implications. And that's part of the reason why the amount has gone up. So even though the amount has gone up, it's still going to be part of your estate.
How about when you're moving between states? Do you need to actually change your will every time you move?
That's actually a very good question. You have to be very careful because it depends on the state. So I only practice in North Carolina and I practice in federal court. So I'm able to address questions in both depending upon the practice area. But I can tell you that different states have different requirements. I would probably, I shouldn't be saying this because it's clearly not, I'm not a lawyer outside of North Carolina, but one of the things that I have seen is they always recommend that if you are going to move to another state, that you go right ahead and meet with an attorney so that way an attorney from that state can advise you. All I can advise you about is North Carolina law. And I can tell you that in North Carolina, we do indicate to individuals that if you're moving from state to state, you should go see a North Carolina lawyer to ensure that your will is in fact perfected under the law. Yeah.
So like for an IRA, they would pay, if they're gonna take the money out, they would take the
Yes.
taxes on it.
So what I have seen done before is individuals at the very end of their life, right? What you can do is you can start distributing your estate in advance of passing. So that way it doesn't become part of your estate. You've already given it to others. Of course, you have to worry in that context about gift tax, but in essence, that is a way to make sure. So we had a couple of families come in one time, and what we did is they knew that they needed a certain amount to live. And they anticipated that they were going to be passing on within the next couple of years. So they started distributing their estate in advance of passing on, so that way it's not going to be taxed to the individuals. And so this was before the new tax code, though. And so in essence, they played around with the tax implications both before and after. But now you also have to recognize, is the IRA tax, was it taxed when it came in? Or are you going to get taxed when it comes out, right? Because there's different kinds of IRAs in that context. So you got to also watch out what kind of IRA it is. That's why I told you it really depends. But in essence, there are ways to do it so that way it kicks it out of the estate and you're able to ensure that your heirs have those funds. It's just going to be done while you're there. And that's where trust can actually play a role, as I was indicating earlier. If you have a trust doesn't have to take into effect while you pass on. You can create a trust while you're alive. And that's the unique difference between a trust and a will. A lot of times people will want things administered in advance so as to ensure that when they pass, there's a limited amount of assets left to distribute amongst their heirs, especially if they already know exactly what's going to be going on.
ألخص برضو بسرعة اللي قاله جون يوحنا آسف. فبيقول لو هو ورث حاجة من حد وبعدين لقي إن هو هيدفع عليها ضرائب، فبتقول له القانون دلوقتي أكتر من 11 مليون وأنت طالع مش تدفع عليها ضرائب. واخدين بالنا؟ ده السؤال اللي اتسأل. وبعدين لو السؤال التاني، لو حد عزل من هنا وراح حتة تانية بلد تانية، هل القانون هو؟ لا طبعا القانون بيتغير. فنصيحة ان الانسان اللي عمل وصية يسأل المحامي بتاع البلد اللي هو راحها في الستيت اللي هو راحها والكاونت اللي هو راحها عشان يقدر يقول له ايه القانون هناك. واخدين بالنا؟ بتختلف القوانين. أيوة.
لو في حد في المستشفى وهو كاتب الوصية مكتوبة وموثقة أساساً وبعدين غير رأيه وفي 2 شهود على رأيه دوت، فهم دلوقتي هيسيبوا الوصية اللي مكتوبة ومش هيعملوا بيها وهياخدوا بالكلام. مثلا لو أنا جبت 2 witnesses من النيرسز أو whatever، فهو
It's the one that is most recent, right? So which one is the most recent?
المثل اللي انت قلتي له اللي هو التو witnesses.
Then that one is going to be the one that should take into effect. But this is where obviously litigation transpires. The interesting thing is the law says if you have that, in other words, if that transpires, it is in fact that last will and testament as it's commonly referred to, that should take into effect. Not what was written before. It's the most recent event, most recent occurrence.
طب اللي انا عايزه افهمه ان ازاي الكلام ده يتوثق؟ اتس جاست هيبقى كلام ولا يعني ايه الخطوه اللي المفروض تتعمل بعد كده لو
So whoever, in other words, let's say my estate is in Wake County or I pass on in Wake County, right? Go to the clerk of Superior Court and say this person died and they have an estate and we need to appoint a representative to go right ahead and take care of the estate. The clerk of Superior Court takes care of that, unless if that person already set it up through a trust document in advance. Otherwise, it goes through something called probate.
Is that what you do to the will?
Yes, you could do that. Everything goes through probate unless if in fact you have a trust and you're trying to keep it out of the court. A lot of times people don't want the court involved in it. And you can. You can create it so that way the court isn't involved in it. You create a trust document that indicates to the parties specifically what it is that you want done, and you have a trustee who holds a fiduciary responsibility. That's the highest type of responsibility to an individual. You have a beneficiary and the person who wrote it, who is the trustor. This is not, the living will is a directive, right? The living will is telling them what it is that you want. The trust, it has nothing to do with anything regarding what you want done in medical situations. Yes, so, and there are many different ways that the law takes into consideration when you appoint an individual who is supposed to be taking care of your stuff, in other words. That type of relationship is one of the most sacred relationships in the law. That's the reason why when you create a trust document, you can, in essence, ensure and feel comfortable that whomever is going to be the one that's administering it has to follow the law. Now, if they don't follow the law, yes, you can file a lawsuit. and proceed forward by way of making sure that they do so. And that's a breach of fiduciary responsibility. A breach of fiduciary responsibility is clearly a claim in North Carolina. Yes?
What's the difference between the will and the trust? And the trust is stronger than the will?
No, it's not stronger. A lot of people don't want المحكمة في وسط كل حاجة. If انت مش عايزة المحكمة في وسط كل حاجة, اعملي trust.
Okay, with trust, if I don't have anyone responsible about my children after I pass out, who
Okay.
gonna be responsible to do the trust or the will?
You have to assign someone. When you create the trust, so like the trust question is separate than the will. So I'll get to the trust question, then I'll go to the will. You can go to a bank and ask to create a trust document, and they be the ones that are administering your funds to your children in certain circumstances.
Is that what estate planning is?
Yes, yes. And that's the beauty of it. You can go to a lawyer, you can come to us, and we have what is called a trust account. So in other words, we can take your funds, put them in the trust account, and follow suit with what it is that you want done. Whereas I would recommend to go to a bank, quite frankly, and see if the bank that you bank at, especially if you have a relationship with them, and see if there is an avenue that you can take in that regard.
What about if I don't have any money, but I have just the home I have, or the cars, or the retirement plan I have, or
So the
anything else?
retirement plan, you can articulate, depending upon the retirement plan, but a lot of retirement plans, you can articulate in them specifically who is going to be the beneficiary.
Okay.
So you don't have to worry about that being in a trust, unless if you want the funds all together. Let's say you wanted the funds all together in one big pot, because you didn't know how much the retirement plan was going to be at the time of your passing. You can channel it all through a trust. Sometimes people do trust because it's easier. Not because necessarily they don't want the court to be involved, although that's usually the common denominator. We don't want the court to touch, we don't want anything to do with the clerk of superior court. We want everything done the way we want it done. Then you create a trust. But if, for example, you have a bunch of different stuff, you can create a trust and channel everything in it and leave it for your two kids. That's it. Equal value.
If they're minors at the time of passing.
What?
If they're minors at the time of passing.
Then then that's going to be either you're going to have to assign someone that you want, or now the courts will get involved if someone doesn't step up
Even
and
with the
take
trust?
that.
Does a family
No.
member?
Yeah, you got to be careful with that.
Family member, does it honor the court? So if you have family members,
Yes.
they're not going to automatically assign them to a family member, right? That family member has to file custody or something?
Yeah, so now when we get into custody issues, that's a separate issue, but I'll address it. If the state of North Carolina prefers to leave children with family members before they look to anyone outside of the family. It's just a preference here in North Carolina. I personally would recommend you identifying who it is that you would want to, in essence, stand as guardians if, in fact, both you and your husband
Yeah, but
passed
if
away.
I don't have, and
Then definitely the state is going to step in, because the children are going to be wards of the state at that point, right? So in that regard, it's going to fall into custody law, and they can't just be by themselves.
Of course.
Yeah, so the state will step in, and it's probably going to be Child Protective Services. They will step in, and they will then take custody of the children and identify who it is, probably a foster home until adoption proceeds. That's generally how it's done, just based on general custody information. We do have a family law attorney in our firm, and he would be able to address the specifics of it. But my general knowledge of family law would indicate that you are not going to be leaving the children just to live on their own on the street, obviously. Of course. So the state يعني على طول هتاخد custody عليهم. That's why, generally speaking, you want to identify someone. So if you don't have family, have in mind, and this is something you can write into a will, have in mind who you would want.
Like a friend.
Yes, yeah, and that's not a bad idea to keep
But
in
it
mind.
doesn't necessarily, if one of the family member have the same last name,
No, it doesn't matter. No.
like a family in Egypt, and then you just add their name.
Yes, then
we
the
can
children
do it in
will
Egypt.
obviously travel back.
If they are in Egypt, we can.
You can
bring
identify
them.
who,
Yeah,
these are your children. Yes.
Yeah, but they can bring them from Egypt to take
No,
care
they
of them.
can't. Now you're going to have to involve an immigration lawyer, which we definitely do, to bring them in. And that generally can be done through a B1, B2, because obviously they're coming in through court, through something that's filed with the
But I'm
court.
dying and my husband died. Who can I bring them?
No, they're going to have to.
They're going
No.
to Egypt.
So let's just play this out, right? Because this is an interesting example. What will happen there is if you have it in a document and the children go into CPS custody, that document is going to go to the courts and they're going to identify the need for them to come in. So you're going to have a court document that's going to be filed with the, yes, exactly.
So they have to come attend the court.
No, probably, no. Not that they have to come to attend the court hearing. It's going to be, they're going to have to come to take custody of the children. Hopefully there are no court hearings under that circumstance. They'll be the legal guardians of the children. Now, the interesting question, just because I like to complicate things, is would they be able to acquire status through the children and stay here in the United States? I would argue that you could create an avenue there to enable them to stay here in the United States so as to allow the children to acquire the best interests. So this is where I think the fun starts, because then you take the law from this area and you bring the law from this area and you start creating a solution that's best for the family.
طب عشان برضو أرد على أقول اللي قالته، بتقول لو أب وأم ومعهم أولاد قبل ما يموتوا قالوا فلان اللي في مصر أو فلان اللي في مصر هي اللي هتعتني بالأولاد وهي اللي تكير في الأولاد يعني. فإيه اللي بيحصل في الحالة دي؟ طبعا المحكمة هتبص للتراست ده أو الوصية اللي اتكتبت دي وتبعت للشخص ده اللي في مصر وهيجي هنا عشان ياخد باله من الولاد أو تاخد بالها من الولاد. طيب هل ممكن إن الشخص ده يبقى يقعد في أمريكا في الولد ديت شرع يعني إن هو يقعد هنا يعتني بالولاد؟ بتقول دي ممكن تبقى قضية في المحكمة وبعدين في الإيميجريشن يعني في الهجرة، وممكن يدوهم حاجة زي كده. بس طبعا لازم تكون خلال المحامية هي اللي تقدر تعمل الحاجات زي كده. أنا بس بحب أوضح لكم كل حاجة عشان تبقوا عارفين، ويعني كل واحد عمال يسأل أسئلة بس أنا مش ملاحق عشان أوضح كل حاجة واحدة واحدة عشان في ناس بتتكلم بالإنجلش. إيه بعد كده؟
I mean, that's an interesting question, but when a minor tries to take a position, generally speaking, the standard is the best interest of the children. And because of the fact that they're minors, the law doesn't recognize that they know what's in their best interests. Sometimes the court will ask the minor. If the court asks the minor, the court may take that into consideration when addressing what's in their best interest. But that's the reason why we call them minors, because we don't think that they can take care of themselves or hold the best opinions about what's in their best interest. أنا عارفة أنت مش فاهم أنا بقول إيه. بس أنا عايزة أطمن أنت فاهم. استنى عشان أبونا هقول لك. The question had to do with what if the minor doesn't want to be taken into custody by this individual? Then the court's still going to get involved in that regard and address it, but it's not up to the minor. The standard and the law is the best interest of the child.
في واحد سأل سؤال برضو، لو الطفل الصغير ده أو اللي هو الماينر بيسموه مش عايز الشخص ده أو الشخصة ديت إن هم ياخدوا بالهم، مش مهم كلامه إيه لأنه ده ماينر صغير، في المحكمة هي تقوم بالوصية اللي اتثابت ديت. فاهمينها؟ بس كده.
So the two different kind of trusts, I know we've already discussed trusts, so just so you know, a revocable trust is just, in essence, a revocable living trust. You can create it while you're alive, you can create it in essence, so that way all of your assets are going through it. And the reason why it's revocable is because you can change it. A testamentary trust, this is interesting because this will go through the courts. Unlike the revocable living trust, a testamentary trust is really where you take everything, you put it in your will, and you say, I'm putting it in a trust. So it's going to, in essence, go through the court system. So it's going to go, that one is not going to fall out of the court like the first one, the revocable living trust.
بتقول الأول واحدة removable living trust اللي هي وصية هي مترجمينها حية قابلة للإبطال يعني ممكن يغيروها. أما الثانية testamentary trust مش عقدة وصية دي وصية كعهد يعني واخدين بالنا دي زي العهود اللي بتتعمل مش عقدة وصية كعهد هي واخدين بالنا معلش ترجمة كده translation أيوه
Translation.
yes
That would be my fault because
It's
Rita
okay.
and I worked on that and
Yeah.
made sure that even the words that weren't in Arabic,
Yes.
if there was no specific word
Yes.
in Arabic, I had to explain it.
okay
So I certainly take responsibility in that. So these are the tax implications. I want to tell you that North Carolina, not every state is like this, but in North Carolina you don't have to worry about this. In North Carolina there is no inheritance tax and there is no estate tax. But there are other states that do have that. And so you need to be very, very careful with respect to that. No inheritance tax that you need to worry about. The estate tax, like I indicated, is 11 million plus. And so if you think that your estate is going to be more than that, then my recommendation would definitely be to consult with a lawyer so as to see if there are ways to avoid the tax implications to the best of your ability. It's still pretty favorable, especially given the new tax code. Income tax, the beneficiary is not going to have that monetary amount taxed. Now, I give a caveat here because if you do have it in an IRA, you do need to be very, very careful, see how that IRA or retirement plan was created, if the tax was paid when it came in, or if the tax was deferred and you were going to be paying for it afterwards. That certainly is going to be, contingent upon what that particular document says. And then the capital gains tax, as we had discussed, the capital gains tax does not come into consideration when the property goes to the beneficiary. It's when the beneficiary sells the property. So if the beneficiary sold the property and in essence it was $10 million profit, then you are looking at a capital gains tax on that $10 million. And that's where a lot of people get hit the hardest.
قوانين الوراثة زي ما سمعتوا مش هياخدوا ضرائب إلا لما الشخص اللي ورث يبيع الإرث اللي هو أخده وحوالي 10 مليون طبعا هيقولوا المبلغ هياخدوا عليه تاكسس لكن أي حاجة بترثها ما عليهاش ضرائب وهنا زي ما شفتوا في قانون في نورث كارولاينا مفيش ضريبة على العقارات أو على المواريث اللي يرثها الإنسان. طب what does mean federal tax implication?
So there's state and federal in regards to any taxes, right? And so one of the things that we would want to take a look at is the state, and in North Carolina we happen not to worry about it. But then the federal, those are the four that you would have to always look into. You don't have to worry about the inheritance tax. Like I said, the estate tax, and the exact amount is 11.18. So if the estate is more than 11.18, then yes, you're going to have to worry about the estate paying the taxes. And then the income tax, no income tax issues. And the last type of tax is the capital gains tax. Now, I didn't put gift tax in there, but I will tell you that that doesn't come into place under this scenario, but it could come into place if you're trying to get rid of your property in advance of passing away.
يعني ما فيش ضرائب بتقول لكم هنا بس خلي بالكم من الحاجات ضريبة الإرث دي بتاعة الفيدرالية لكن قانون نورث كارولاينا ما فيهوش حاجة زي كده فيش ضرائب. بس الفيدرال هو اللي هياخد ضرائب، الستيت لا. واخدين بالنا؟ ففي ضريبة على الإرث، ضريبة على العقارات، ضريبة على الدخل، وضريبة على الأرباح العائدة على الإنسان. دي هياخدها بتاخد منه الفيدرال. انتوا مش بتدفعوا في الضرائب، بتدفعوا فيدرال وستيت. الستيت ما لهاش دخل بالمواضيع دي، مش هتاخد حاجة، لكن الفيدرال هم اللي هياخدوا.
لو طفلين واحد عملنا الوصية والتاني عدى ال 18 والتاني لا، يعني واحد عدى ال 18 والتاني لا، اللي عدى ال 18 يبقى واصي على اخوه، ولا في الحالة دي الاسم اللي حطيناه هو برضه هيستيل واصي على الصغير؟
الاسم اللي حطيتيه بس نسألها.
Add الاثنين.
سؤال ليكي يا ناردين.
So this is again.
تقول لك في two siblings, one is young, one over 18.
So whenever custody.
When the custody for somebody in Egypt, مثلا, for example, and they have to come. But what about the person who now, at the time of the will, it will be old.
Okay, so
When I did the trust or anything, it's under 18. But after this time, it's over 18. But the another one, it's still young, like 10 or 9.
in other words, انتي مش قلتي you didn't write any directive regarding the older child taking custody of the younger child, is what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that.
It would probably, I would recommend that you do so, but let me tell you something. These questions, I always want to put on the caveat. It depends. And the reason why I always say it depends is because the facts that you are informing me of, I'm making certain assumptions to be able to answer. Those assumptions have to be, in fact, correct, right? So I will tell you what the law is regarding custody. Bottom line, the best interests of the child, right? So let's say, just by way of example, I ended up wanting my children to go to somebody that was really not suited to take care of the children. Obviously, CPS could get involved at any point in time if they don't believe that this is in the best interest of the child. So even though I said that, that doesn't mean it's going to be honored. Because CPS, that's the reason why CPS is of existence, is to ensure that the child's welfare is, in fact, maintained at the highest level. So be very careful because, in essence, the questions about minors always fall back to the best interests of the child. Okay?
عارفين ان احنا اللي عاملين لايف ستريمينج عشان يبقى مسجل للكل عشان ترجعوا له بعد كده. فيبدو ان في حد متابع فبعت لي سؤال بيقول لو حد كاتب البيت باسمه هل من حقه يكتب وصيته وزوجته لم تأخذ حاجة؟ هو بيقول ان ما فيش حد هياخد حاجة لانه كتب وصية. Do you understand what I mean?
I think I do. Well, he's married?
ما هو طبعا married.
So, all right, so that means, quite frankly, even if that property is going to be tenants by the entirety.
Husband wrote a will.
Yes?
And excluded his wife from that.
That property is held by the entirety. So she's going to take that property, because that's how husband and wife are treated in North Carolina. So that's not something he's going to be able to avoid.
يبقى حتى لو هو كتب وصية، الوصية دي مش هتنفع هنا في نورث كارولاينا. الزوجة ليها حق في البيت بس have.
No, she takes it all. When he dies,
Alright.
she takes it all.
Even if her name didn't in the contract or in the law or anything.
It's automatically tenants by the entirety.
حتى لو هو مش مكتوب اسمها على البيت
Yeah.
من حقها انها تاخد البيت. ربنا يديكوا طولة العمر يعني.
I know.
في قانون بيقول ان الزوجه تاخد البيت او العكس.
There is no law for inheritance, but why the wife will take the house?
She's so every every state. Wow. We're vicious. Every state is different, but in the state of North Carolina, property, the homestead is tenants by the entirety. It's created tenants by the entirety. So let's say you held it tenants in common, and you guys get married, and in other words, you held it in a different way beforehand, and then you get married and you're living in that homestead, it's tenants by the entirety.
It's the same thing for cars,
No,
or just only house?
that's the house.
Vice versa.
Doesn't matter, spouse is spouse.
Okay.
Yeah.
كله تحت.
Am I correct when saying it's true for the house, the car that has both of them on the name of the license?
That's different. Yes.
Isn't that like, and the bank accounts, if they have dual,
Yes.
them are owners, then if someone passes away, it's planning the license.
Yes, so it's called rights of survivorship. And that's actually a way that you don't have to have the property go through probate, right? So if the property is held in some manner, rights of survivorship, it automatically goes to the person who's alive. Yeah.
طيب سؤال كمان افرض two couples passed away and without any trust or any will. listen عشان انا بفتح مواضيع عشان تعرفوا. لو في زوجين ربنا يديكوا الصحة عندهم ممتلكات وبعيد عنكم انتقلوا، ايه بقى الوضع هيكون بالنسبة لهم؟ What is the situation or the case for the two couples passed away
At the same time.
at the same time?
So then it goes, so the way I see it is like a family tree, right? Your parents are up, husband and wife, children are down. So in North Carolina, if both husband and wife passed away, then it goes down to children. And so it's going to be distributed equally amongst the children.
No children.
Parents. Then you find the next kin. Who's the next kin?
But now, you said there's no law to give the family, and now
What do you mean, no law to give the family? So this is, if you're dying without a will or trust or anything, no, the law does come into place. Yes. Yes, who? No, you don't if you don't want to. But if you want to identify, if you don't want to split your property the way the law dictates, which most people don't, that's why you write a will. Yeah. So that question is contingent upon the clerk of superior court and how many other estates it's likely distributing at the time that are going through probate. And so that's going to be, there are a lot of variables that I am not aware of at this present time. And you won't know, quite frankly, even when your will or your property goes through probate. So generally speaking, we've seen a year and a half. Bigger estates could take longer. Yes.
You said if we are here and we died already, husband and wife,
died.
and and going to the children, automatic, correct?
No, that's
We have
if you
to go-
don't have a will.
Okay, we don't have a will.
If you have nothing, then it's gonna go, if you're husband and wife and you die, it's gonna go of equal value to the children. If you don't have
Without-
anything.
Yeah.
Yes.
If we don't have anything.
Yes.
Okay.
In North Carolina.
Okay, but that's what we want. But
Yes.
why we do will or trust?
Because you may not want it distributed in that manner.
طب لو انت عايزه يعني مثلا ايه انت مش عايزه توزعي الارث بتاعك بطريقه مختلفه. قانون بيوزعه بطريقه. بس بعد الوفاه لازم يعدي through the court يعني مش through the court through the clerk يعني لازم زي اعلان وراثه.
ايوه
اعلان وراثه اوكي؟ بس لكن لو انت عايزه توزعي بطريقه مختلفه
اكتبي الوصية.
بتراعي وصيه توزعها بس ان كده حتى بعد الوفاه لو ما فيش وصيه لازم هو في مصر بيسموه كده اعلان وراثه عشان يجري التركه وبعدين يتقسم بالطريقه اللي بيفضل. اعلان الوراثه ده she was just saying it could take up to a year or year and a half depending on
If you want to save this time, do the will or
ده مش كده وبس، هتدفع مصاريف في المحكمة وتدفع حاجات كتيرة، فخلي بالكوا يعني. أنا بس بصحصحكوا شوية.
طبعا دي حاجة. That's why most people don't want to use the court. They want nothing to do with the court.
بس هتاخد كتير قبل ما ياخدوك.
Yes. Yes. Yes, they can't, so they're not going to be able to just take on everything. That's another reason why you might actually, this is a good question. Yes, that's another reason why you might want to do a will. Yes, exactly.
And who's can
Yes.
take care of them?
You wanna ma-
Whatever the name in the will.
Perfect. And that's, so this is in effect getting creative, you know what I mean? If you know that your children are going to have someone that's going to take care of the money that comes to them, which obviously minors do, it's not a bad idea to have a will, right? Because then you can dictate how it's going to be done. Yes.
So the person who's going to take care of the kids at both parents, can you dictate how they use the money? Because like you want to make sure they don't take advantage of your.
Absolutely,
Right.
but it comes back to the fiduciary responsibility, right?
Yeah.
So that's the reason why the law recognizes that as the highest or most sacred type of relationship, because it is. You know, if you are the one who is in fact responsible for the distribution to the children, you could in fact take advantage of that in a negative way. And so, but you could be found criminally liable, not just civilly liable.
So in that case, you'd set up a trust, not a will.
Yes. Well, that's exactly why some people will set up a trust. But you could set up a will in the sense of identifying guardianships.
Got it.
Yes, exactly.
We talked about a lot of like money passing
Money,
down.
yes.
What if you have debt and both parties die? What happens to?
So the estate will, in fact, the clerk of superior court will send notification to debt collectors. And of course, I give the caveat, all my answers are general. And the reason being is because it depends upon the debt. Like, let's say you're contesting it. But nonetheless, generally speaking, the clerk of superior court will notify all of the debtors and funnel the estate in a way where the estate will be used to pay off the debt, and then the assets are distributed. The debts are usually taken care of first. It could come out of everything. Yeah. They try to ensure that the debts are taken care of. But if debtors are notified and they're not in fact coming up, then that's where they could in essence waive their rights to anything.
What if there's not enough assets to cover the debts? If the debts.
Then that becomes a bad debt for the company. And they'll have to go right ahead and identify it as such in their taxes. Yes.
But the children do not basically have to pay that debt.
No. The estate, before it's distributed with the children, the estate takes care of the debt. It's not per se the beneficiary themselves. Of course, it cuts into the beneficiary's amounts if you look at it in that way, but it's not directly the beneficiary.
ممكن البنفيشاري مش هياخدوا حاجة خالص.
ممكن. طبعا.
بس لا، السؤال اللي اتسأل برضو عشان ما يعديش، لو حد بعيد عنكم عنده مديونية، عليه مديونية وحد انتقل، الإرث بتاعه ده هيحصل ازاي؟ طبعا الستيت او الكليرك اللي هو في المحكمة او في بتاع السيتي هنا في رالي مثلا، هيبص في الموضوع، هيبلغ كل اللي الدائنين على الشخص، وبعدين يجي ياخدوا حقهم في الأول، وإذا فضلت حاجة يدوها للمستفيدين، ما فضلتش عليهم العوض. حتى لو في ويل في تراست. مش كده؟ أي مديونية طبعا كريدت كارد عليكي، واخدة لون من البنك، أي مديونية whatever called debts DEBTS.
Most debts survive the death of the debtor. So that's the reason why you've got to be very, very careful. I know of an example, for instance, beautiful piece of property, mortgaged beyond the value of the property, left for the children happy, but then, quite frankly, the creditors, I think I mentioned it earlier on accident saying debtors, but the debtors is the actual person who's died. The creditor is the person that's going after the debt. The creditors pretty much took ownership of the property because the property itself was over mortgaged. So there was nothing left for the children. from that property. Now, there are other assets, retirement funds and things of that nature that clearly they took into effect.
بالمناسبة دي على فكرة اللي بياخدوا لون عشان يشتري بيت وياخد لون يقول لك أنا مش لازم أدفع في اللون ده غير حاجات بسيطة وعشان يبقى معايا كاش وأقدر أشتغل بالطريقة ديت اللي هي بتقولها أحسن إن كنتوا تدفعوا اللون بتاع البنك من إن كنتوا تخلوا الفلوس ليه؟ نمرة واحد لأن الانترست على اللون كبير لكن لو أنت حطيت الفلوس دي في بنك CD مش هتجيب حاجة 0.5 ولا أقل كمان فأحسن إنك أنت تسدد في البرنسبل وتقلل في بعد كده في اللي باقي في المورجج واخد بالك المورجج مش بيقل هو لكن القيمة البرنسبل اللي عليك هو اللي بيقل فاهمينها؟ فأحسن إنك كنتوا تحطوا في البرنسبل من إنك كنتوا تسيبوا عليكوا لون ويقعد بال30 40 سنة ومشي حالك والكلام اللي واخدين بالنا ففي النهاية بعيد عنكم ربنا يديكوا الصحة ممكن الولاد ما يستفيدوش بحاجة لأنه البنك هياخد الباقي ده اللي ليه يبيع البيت زي ما بتشوفوا بتحصل حاجات زي الفولكلوجر اللي بيتعمل محدش قادر يسدد فيعملوا فولكلوجر يبيعوا ممكن يبيعوه بأقل من قيمته واخدين بالنا؟ ما دي سدد خلصت واخد بالك صح؟ اوكي؟
Well, you were a lawyer, Abuna, so you know all this.
In the past.
بالنسبة لو أنا أسمع بعض الولايات مثلا بيقولوا زي كاليفورنيا بس أنا مش متأكد من ده. بيقولوا ان الواحد حتى لو عنده اللي هو الانشورنس زي الميديكيت والميديكير الايج بعد 55 الحكومه بتسجل الكوست بتاعت الميديكال ولو عنده بروبرتي ممكن بعد كده بعد الوفاه تاخدوا التكلفه دي من البروبرتي لو هو هيورثها لحد او هيبيعها. هل الكلام ده هنا موجود في نورث كارولاينا؟
Do you understand what did he mean?
I don't.
Then later, if you have any property or whatever, and after your decease, they'll go after your property to pay for those expenses of the medical bills on Medicare or Medicaid.
So you're talking about the medical facilities will go right ahead and attach a lien on your property? Is that what you're saying?
Somehow, he didn't explain exactly how, but they will go after your property after you're deceased, and there's any equity there, they'll seize the equity, the amount.
So I will tell you that doesn't feel right. And generally, when I feel as if something, because by the grace of God, Rabbina ala tul bawadini to what I think is right. I think that this is probably an area of dispute. I can't say for sure because this is Medicare and Medicaid, and I don't work in Medicare and Medicaid. I don't know what their rights are in the government, but nonetheless, I would imagine that they can't attach themselves to your property. But I can tell you that I have never had an issue like that come up, and so I can certainly research it and inform you of the specifics regarding it.
But in my opinion, it doesn't.
It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it is not right. Why is Medicare and Medicaid?
But Abuna, if you do have medical expenses, I don't know about Medicaid, but you do have medical expenses and you
Both
owe on
Medicare and Medicare, if the Medicare مش عارف, it doesn't pay, the rest will pay by the Medicare or vice versa. I don't know, but it paid with the Medicare or Medicaid.
But how about
If you have medical expenses?
في كاليفورنيا اللي معاهم ميديكير وميديكير اللي فوق ايج 55 لغايه مثلا بيتحسب الاكسبنس من ايج 55 لغايه لما بسوي لغايه لما الانسان بيموت والميديكال ده الحكومه بتحسبه بعد كده بعد الوفاه بيشوفوا لو عنده اي ملكيه او اي حاجه الحكومه بتاخد الفلوس دي.
This is California.
California?
Yes, at California, he heard this, how it happened.
California does a lot of things that North Carolina does not like at all. I can tell you that right now. Yani, California, sometimes lawyers will talk about California as if it's another country. The law في القانون في كاليفورنيا مش هتبقى القانون هنا. بس أنا أقول لك حاجة، أنا عارفة أنت بتسأل إيه. So دي حاجة تحت ال government. So it doesn't feel right. بس أنا عايزة أطمن عليك. So أنا بص وأكلمك individually. Private. Okay, so this they're going to be considered debtors. And so they can go right ahead and file with the clerk of superior court indicating that the money is owed. Now, you can create certain documents like the IRA and things of that nature. I know, for example, some clients, we've looked for IRAs, and some of the IRAs have it so that way it's not going to be touched by debtors. So you wanna double check what your IRA says to see if there's a way you can avoid that. Mm-hmm.
Anything?
Now that's so just so that way we can make sure we're following the rules. Every estate is different. Even if you have a simple estate, there may be things like, for example, debt that could be unique to your circumstance or situation. And so if you don't want the beneficiaries to have to deal with that, there are different documents you can look into to try to create. But it's going to always depend upon the different assets and the different debts of each estate. And there's no way that can be addressed during a seminar. I wanted to leave everyone with this notion that, Romans 8:28 is all things work for good for those who love God, which in essence, if you take a look at that verse, you can recognize how God promises to make something good out of the storms that bring devastation to your life. So when we pass on, we don't want to leave our families with such storms. We want to ensure that your passing is as peaceful as possible.
في أي أسئلة عندكم if you have any questions تفضل. Yes.
All the states?
So the only individuals that can draft besides besides the trustor, the trustee, the person who's drafting the document, are lawyers in North Carolina. So in other words, even if you go to a bank, the bank is going to have a lawyer be the one drafting it.
And then, but if you move to another state, that trust
That's going to be different.
Okay.
So if you move to another state, I would recommend that you speak with a lawyer in that state, because the requirements in the other state could potentially be drastically different than our state.
Okay.
يعني كده ما تعزلوش من هنا خليكوا هنا.
Stay here.
حد ليه أي أسئلة تاني؟
But if you have property, I want to make sure I identify this. If you have property in another state and you're trying to, there might be tax implications in the other state, and you better consult. And usually if you go to a lawyer here to be able to ensure that property is taken care of, they'll go right ahead and identify for you a lawyer in the other state, so that way you can work together. They work together.
بتقول لو في if there is property in Egypt, can they add it to this will here or the trust? Can to add it here to the will?
ده طبعا هتبقى انا مش عارفه القانون في مصر. Well, you can add anything you want to, but the law, anything that has value coming into the United States, I would be remiss to say is not going to be taken into the United States. Yes, but the value of it. So if you sold it, right, that's the way you get it here. You sell it, because every property has, there's a dollar sign in with property. So you sell it. I don't know what the law is there, and you can funnel the money here.
ما تقدريش، لازم تسألي محامي في مصر. اسألي محامي في مصر. Ask a lawyer in Egypt. Hello. ما هو القانون دلوقتي اتغير، في حاجات اتغيرت، فأحسن تبقوا أبديتد بالحاجات اللي بتبقى جديدة. فيها وراثة بس بيتعمل إعلام وراثة بس. خلاص. أي أسئلة تاني؟ شفتوا بقى المواضيع إزاي لازم نبقى عارفين بيها. طب أحب أن أنا أشكر ناردين على تعبها. Thank you a lot. I may the Lord reward you. بشكر ريتا على وجودها. وإن شاء الله الحد الجاي هتتكلم برضو عن الإيميجريشن. أي أسئلة عن الإيميجريشن عايزينها. بفكر كمان إني عشان القوانين بتاعة المرور والحاجات اللي زي كده أدعي حد من البوليس أوفيسرز يجي برضو يدينا فكرة عشان تبقوا عارفين. وإحنا لو تفتكروا زمان جبنا ساعة مكان الهيلث انشورنس، جبنا ناس تتكلم عن الهيلث انشورنس وايه اللي اتعمل. اي حد ليه اي اقتراحات يا ريت يقول لي. كمان بشكر ناردين ان هي قالت ان هي هتدي انجلش كلاسز، وبول هيساعد كمان، فتبدا انجلش كلاسز every Sunday God willing. اللي عايز she knows Arabic but شوف broken Arabic. طيب بنشكر. طيب بشكركم واسفين على اللي حصل في القاعة، بس هعمل ايه يعني، ما قدروش يعملوا الميكروفون وكده، فمعلش. الحد الجاي ان شاء الله هنشوف اذا كان اتصلح الميكروفون او ما تصلحش، نبقى هنا تاني. طيب طيب. Make us swear to pray thankfully. جعلنا مستحقين أقول بشكر أبانا الذي في السماوات. Our Father who art in heaven. May the love of God the Father, Pantocrator, and the grace of the only begotten Son, our Lord Jesus Christ, gift communion of the Holy Spirit be with you. Go in peace. The peace of God be with you. ربنا معكم. امضوا بالسلام. سلام الرب يكون معكم.